Hey guys, it's KevyDog4. It's been forever since I've posted a video, and I apologize for that. But since I've posted my last video was at the end of the NFL regular season. Now it has been nearly 2 weeks since the Super Bowl. And I was very, very busy, and I never had time to put together any playoff videos, so I kind of combined them all into one to sum up the entire playoffs. So that's this video. Let's get started. Here was the playoff seeding for the 2016-17 playoffs. The AFC, the seeding went as follows: number 1, New England; number 2, Kansas City; 3, Pittsburgh; 4, Houston; 5, Oakland; and 6, Miami. And the NFC had Dallas, Atlanta, Seattle, Green Bay, the New York Giants, and Detroit. So those were the 12 playoff teams. Here were my predictions. So this was my original playoff bracket. As you can see, AFC is on this side, NFC is on this side. So all these games over here, how it works is, you probably know, the first and second seed from each conference get a first round bye, and then 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5, and then the brackets just go from there. And the lowest seeded team remaining after this wild card weekend plays the number 1 seed, and the highest remaining seed plays the number 2 seed. So here were the games. I'll just go AFC first. The Texans and Raiders played the first game. I was going to pick Oakland there, and they were going to play New England, and from there I was going to pick New England to win that game. Down here, Steelers and Dolphins, I picked the Steelers for this game to play the Chiefs, and I picked the Chiefs to win that matchup. And between that matchup, I picked New England to end up representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. In the NFC, Green Bay played the Giants. I picked the Giants to win that game and face the Cowboys, and I picked the Giants to win that game. For the 3 versus 6 Seattle versus Detroit, I picked Detroit to win that game, to play Atlanta to win. And then between Atlanta and the Giants, I picked the Giants to face the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and the Patriots to be Super Bowl 51 champions. So I will break that down further as we go along. But that was my original bracket. It's not how it went. However, there are some similarities to what I have in this bracket that actually did occur, but we'll get into that later. So here is what happened in Wild Card Weekend. The first game was the number 5 seeded Oakland versus Houston in an AFC matchup. My pick was Oakland. In this game, Derek Carr did fracture his leg, break his leg, 2 weeks from the end of the regular season. So Oakland did struggle in their last week without him, but I figured that this team, being as talented as they were all season, could still beat Houston. I was wrong. Houston won this game 27-14. So they advanced to play New England. Oakland was eliminated, clearly missing Derek Carr. And we'll see what happens with them next year, but Derek Carr is clearly an asset to this team that they couldn't have won without. NFC, the next matchup was NFC Detroit, number 6 seed, versus Seattle, the number 3 seed. My pick was the Lions because Seattle had been on a slide coming into the playoffs. They had been playing fairly poorly compared to normal coming into the playoffs, and I felt like they would be eliminated fairly quickly, so I picked Detroit. However, they only scored 6 points. Seattle won 26-6, so I was wrong on this prediction as well. Seattle advanced to play Atlanta in the divisional round. The next game was another AFC matchup, number 6 Miami, number 3 Pittsburgh. I picked the Steelers to win this game. They did 30-12, is that right? I feel like it was a larger margin of victory than that. I could have mistyped this, so I'm going to check for sure on this score. But Miami, coming into this game, they had lost Ryan Tannehill several games earlier. I think it was a knee injury that he had. So they weren't struggling without him. They had Matt Moore. He was doing pretty well, but Pittsburgh was just so solid at the end of the season. And yes, this score was 30-12, so I didn't mistype something. I felt like it was a larger margin, but it wasn't. But Pittsburgh was doing so well coming in to the playoffs that I figured they'd be able to beat Miami fairly easily, so they did. And the last matchup of wildcard weekend was an NFC matchup between the Giants and Packers. I picked the Giants to win this game. Green Bay, they had won about 6 straight, I want to say. But I figured the streak's got to stop at some point, and the Giants had been doing so well all season. I figured that they could be that team to stop Green Bay, but Green Bay was scary. However, Green Bay blew them out 38-13. So this one really busted my bracket. Here's what happened. My predictions in the wild card round, I got 1 correct, 3 incorrect. So as you can see, I put X's over the teams that were eliminated. Raiders eliminated, Giants, and Lions. I predicted the Steelers game correctly, so this matchup ended up being as I envisioned. I had to replace the other 3 teams here, and as you can see, my predictions for the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl were skewed because of this, because I had the Giants going all the way to the Super Bowl. However, everything else stopped at the divisional round, so this really busted my bracket, this game here, between the Giants and the Packers. So let's see what else we've got here. So this is the new bracket that I created based on who advanced. So I left my predictions from the first round here, so you can see what happened, but I put the teams that advanced, and I put my new predictions for who was going to go where now. So now that Houston was over here, I still had New England winning. Over here, this stayed the same, so I left my prediction the same for Kansas City, and then obviously New England I had here, Kansas City, and I have them in the Super Bowl. So over here, now Green Bay is playing Dallas. I predicted Dallas to win this one, and Seattle I did not predict to win, but now that they're over here, I picked Atlanta over Seattle. I had Atlanta here against Dallas. I had Dallas being in the Super Bowl now instead of the Giants. And I still had New England winning, so that's my new bracket. Here goes the divisional round. So NFC, the first game, Seattle versus Atlanta, number 3 versus number 2 seed. I picked the Falcons, as I said before. The team, week to week, I didn't expect them to be this high in the playoffs, if in the playoffs at all, at the beginning of the season. But little by little, I started to notice that they were coming on. And before I knew it, I didn't even realize that they were coming up. They ended up being a first-round bye. Seattle, as I said before, kind of fallen off a little bit coming in, but Atlanta was just getting stronger and stronger. So I picked them. They won 36-20 to advance to the NFC Championship game. AFC, Houston versus New England. I picked the Patriots, of course. I had them going all the way no matter what. And they won 34-16 to advance. Let's see what else happened here. Green Bay versus Dallas, NFC. I picked Dallas, and in a last-second 51-yard field goal, I want to say Mason Crosby kicked the game winner for Green Bay to defeat Dallas. So their outstanding season came to an end, and Green Bay advanced to the NFC Championship game, and at this point they were looking like they could possibly be in the Super Bowl. And then the last game was the AFC, Pittsburgh versus Kansas City. I picked Kansas City because they were deadly at home, but I figured it'd be a very close game, and Pittsburgh won 18-16, and oddly enough, every point that Pittsburgh scored came off of a field goal. So they won completely on field goals here, defeated Kansas City on the road. So that was really unexpected for me. I did not think that would happen. But here were my predictions. I know this is starting to get messy now, but I predicted 2 games correctly, 2 games incorrectly. for the divisional round. So this was the updated bracket of what occurred. I predicted the New England game correctly, advanced over here. I predicted this game incorrectly, so the Steelers would now be in the AFC Championship game to play New England. And then I predicted the Dallas game incorrectly, and Green Bay would be here to face Atlanta, which I did predict this one correctly. Here's my original bracket, and out of all the teams in my original bracket, only 2 were still in. That would be New England and Atlanta. Those were the only 2 teams untouched in my bracket so far. And so, what did I do here? I don't know. I don't think I was going to put Atlanta here yet because I don't think I was ready. I can't remember if I was going to update my bracket or whatever, but anyways. So, here was the update for the New England game. Got that correct, so I left it. Whoops. And then, as you can see, I had to X out Kansas City here and here. They were eliminated, so Pittsburgh replaced them. Giants all the way down the board, gone. So the only games here that were still the same, New England, Atlanta, but I had the Giants going to the Super Bowl, not Atlanta, so no matter what was going to happen over here, I was not going to have the NFC Super Bowl contender the way that they were going to be, but still, New England here, Atlanta here, and here's my new bracket. So here are the results for the first 2 weeks, the wild card weekend divisional playoffs. Here's the conference championships. It would be New England versus Pittsburgh and Green Bay versus Atlanta, and I predicted after this an Atlanta-New England Super Bowl with New England coming out on top. So let's go to the NFC and AFC championship games. The NFC championship game came first, Green Bay versus Atlanta. My pick was the Falcons because I figured once again that this streak that Green Bay was on, it was going to have to end at some point, and I figured that Atlanta being at home, this was going to help them. I was right. They completely blew them out of the park, 44-21, to advance to their second Super Bowl ever. Really unexpected for a lot of people to see Atlanta in the Super Bowl. I didn't expect it either. AFC, Pittsburgh, New England. I forgot to change the logo. Oh well. So, just pretend to have a Steelers logo there. I picked New England because they were pretty much unstoppable all season. They were playing at home. Pittsburgh coming off of that 6 field goal win from the week before. I figured that New England, if Kansas City could shut them down like that, shut down their offense to the point where they couldn't score touchdowns, I figured that New England, if they could just do the exact same thing, would come out of here easily with a win. And that was true. New England won 36-17. Putting them in their 7th Super Bowl with Brady and Belichick. I think it was their 9th all-time. I want to say 9th all-time, but 7th with the Brady-Belichick duo. Here was my predictions for the conference championships. I predicted both games correctly. So check here. New England in the Super Bowl, and down here, Atlanta in the Super Bowl. I predicted New England to be the champions. And in my original bracket, New England is the only team that was still where I had them. Atlanta was still in, but they were not in. I didn't have them in the Super Bowl, so that was just the entire NFC was busted from the first week, wild card, whatever. So, I did predict New England all the way to the Super Bowl, so that was something. Here's my new bracket. It was the same as last week's bracket. I just put check marks by these 2 games, saying that both these teams made it. And I had New England and Atlanta here in the Super Bowl, New England being the Super Bowl champions. I didn't I didn't pick an NFC team to be the team to play against Atlanta in the Super Bowl preseason, but preseason I said that New England would be winning the Super Bowl, so we will see if that is true or not. Super Bowl 51, let's go. So New England versus Atlanta. Atlanta was the home team technically. They switch off between AFC and NFC every other year, so Atlanta was technically the home field team this year. My pick was New England, and they did win this Super Bowl 34-28 in overtime. It's the first overtime game in Super Bowl history, so I will go through some major plays and all the scoring that occurred in this game. So at the end of the first quarter, it was 0-0, and New England in the Brady Belichick era has never scored in the first quarter of a Super Bowl. All 7 times they've been there, which is bizarre. I don't know why that has never happened, but that is an interesting statistic that I found out while watching the Super Bowl. So in the second quarter, at the 14-minute mark Blunt from New England, he fumbled the ball at the Atlanta 29-yard line, and Atlanta recovered, and from that point in the game, things just went insane for Atlanta. They were doing so well. Around the 12-minute mark, Freeman had a 5-yard touchdown run, and the score was 7-0. Bryant did make the extra point, obviously. And right under the 9-minute mark, Matt Ryan hit Hooper for the touchdown. So the score is now 14-0. And still no scoring for New England here. Around the 2:20 mark, Alford had a 82-yard interception return for a touchdown. So Brady threw a pick six, and extra point was made. So the score was now 21-0. And finally, with 2 seconds left in the second quarter, Gostkowski hit a 41-yard field goal, and the score was 21-3. Atlanta up by 18 points. New England finally on the board at the end of the second quarter, and they were all going crazy at the end of the first half because the largest deficit that was overcome in a Super Bowl ever prior to this game, I think it occurred about 3 times. One of them was the Super Bowl 49 that New England was in. A 10-point deficit was the largest ever overcome in the Super Bowl. So this deficit was 18. People were really excited. They were thinking Atlanta for sure had this, but they weren't sure. They're like, what, will New England pull out one of those games again, or does Atlanta have this? So second half, let's see what happened. Quarter 3, 8:31 mark, Matt Ryan threw another touchdown to Coleman this time. The score was now 28-3. This was the largest deficit of the game for New England, largest lead for Atlanta, 25 points. At this point, almost everyone said it's over, and I said that too. I said for sure Atlanta's going to win this Super Bowl because with so little time left, it was so unlikely that this deficit would be overcome because this rarely happens in a normal game, let alone a Super Bowl with so much pressure against an incredible team. I did see it a couple of years ago. The Chiefs and Colts, they played a game, and Indianapolis was down by around 22 maybe, and they overcame it in the second half, but that was divisional round or wild card round, and it was done over a much greater period of time. The scoring started at the very beginning of the quarter, and it took until the 2-minute mark of the third quarter for New England to score again. So that gave them about 17 minutes to make up a 25-point deficit, and everyone said no way. But Tom Brady had a 5-yard touchdown pass to White at the 2-minute mark. The extra point attempt was no good, so the score was now 28-9, and at this point people were saying no way, you can't miss an extra point. End of the third quarter score, 28-9, Atlanta 15 minutes away from their first Super Bowl win. Fourth quarter, 9:44 mark, field goal made by Gostkowski, 33 yards, score is now 28-12. So the lead's being cut into a little bit, but they're running out of time. It's the 8:31 mark, and Matt Ryan fumbles the ball at their own 25-yard line, and New England recovered. And then at the 5:56 mark, there was a touchdown pass from Brady to Amendola. 2-point conversion was successful to White. He ran it into the end zone. The score was now 28-20, and people now knew there was time, but not much. And it's an 8-point game. They have to have a 2-point conversion to be successful. They can't let Atlanta score. 2:28 mark, Tom Brady hits Edelman this time for the touchdown. No, not for the touchdown. This was the pass. This was not a scoring play. I included this play for a good reason, because it was probably the game saver for New England. Tom Brady hit Edelman for 23 yards. The ball was inches, probably not even inches, like an inch or less from the ground. It was challenged by Atlanta to see if it was a catch or not. It was upheld, so it was ruled catch. The ball, it was incredible because Brady threw the ball, it was tipped, and there were 2 or 3 defenders around Edelman, and the ball bounced off of at least one of their feet, hit maybe a second player, and Edelman caught this ball. It was less than an inch off of the ground, and he caught this ball, and no one could believe what happened. It was like the helmet catch that beat the Patriots several years back. It was similar to that. It was just one of those incredible catches that you will never be able to repeat, never see again. And it happened, and it was possibly the game saver. It was definitely one of the biggest plays of the game. And this is the catch. That is how close the ball was to the ground. He caught that ball. So 3 players around Edelman, and he caught the ball. So moving on to the 57-second mark, White had a 1-yard touchdown run. So this was the next scoring play. There was a 2-point conversion. It was successful to Amendola from Brady. The score was now tied with less than a minute left. It ended that way, 28-28. They were going to the first overtime in Super Bowl history. So in overtime, New England won the coin flip. So they were going to go first. They elected to receive first. And at the 11:02 mark, White had a 2-yard touchdown run into the end zone. Very, very close. They didn't decide to review it. They knew he was in. So touchdown, 34-28. And since New England had the first possession of overtime, whichever team gets the first possession, if they score on that first possession and they get a touchdown, it has to be a touchdown. If they score a touchdown on that first possession, the game is over. So that ended it. New England finished a 25-point comeback, which is by far the largest in Super Bowl history. They won 34-28. This was Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's 5th Super Bowl win, so they became the most winning quarterback and coach in Super Bowl history. There is one other player, I can't remember who it is, that has 5 Super Bowl wins. But Brady, if he wins another Super Bowl, which would be insane to think if he could win another one, he would become the most winning player in Super Bowl history, and Belichick the most winning coach. And there were something like 30 records broken during this game by both teams. So that was ridiculous as well, and Tom Brady was named Super Bowl MVP. So here was my prediction. I got the Super Bowl correct, obviously. So, original bracket started here, had New England. From the point that they entered, I picked them every single game, and they pulled through and won. I picked New England from the start of the season, knowing about the Brady suspension and knowing that a lot of times when you suspend someone for something like what happened in New England, like their scenario, they often come back like stronger than before, and it often ends up backfiring. And it certainly did, because New England, after the whole Deflategate scenario, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, and final bracket that occurred, this is how things actually panned out. Clean slate, Texans, New England, Steelers going all the way here. Green Bay coming all the way to the championship game, defeating all these incredible teams. Let me go back. Seattle, Atlanta, defeating all these teams that were absolutely incredible, playing great seasons. Improbable Super Bowl appearance, and the Patriots with the improbable comeback. So congratulations to the Patriots, 5th Super Bowl win. Absolutely incredible. It's incredible to watch. So thanks for following my channel throughout the NFL season. Make sure you come back for my basketball videos. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to post some of these soon, but I'm very, very far behind on my spreadsheets and everything, so I have no guarantees as to when my next NBA video will be up, but for sure I will have some up before the end of the season. Hopefully the regular season, but for sure I'll have some playoff videos coming if that's all that happens. That will for sure happen. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. Go back and check out all my other videos from earlier this season. I'll hopefully get up one more NFL video based on how my predictions went this year, how the teams did, and tune into my NBA videos. So thanks for following me this NFL season, and I'll see you guys in my next video.